What would you do? What could you do for the Lord, for the kingdom of the Lord, if you weren't afraid? Write that down. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And I want you to frame it in what you would be able to do for the Lord to further his kingdom if you could give up that fear. I'm not judging you at all. Fear is really hard. It's something that I don't think we ever really get over. I always say faith is a practice. I think having that fear and the worry and the things that continue to come upon us and separate us from the Lord and make our lives harder, it's all part of that practice. So give yourself grace as you practice getting rid of that fear. But what is something that you would do if you weren't afraid? We goal set and we think of all the beautiful things we could do in our life, and vision boarding and really envisioning your life is so important. But I want you to frame this specific one in what you would do for the Lord if you weren't afraid. It could be going up and speaking to somebody. It could be preaching the gospel. It could be building a home for women, for children. It could be adopting. There's so many things that you could do to further the kingdom of the Lord if you weren't afraid. When we left and went to Mexico and became missionaries for 3 months, there was a lot of fear leading up to that. There was a lot of excitement and planning, and then the Lord put it on our hearts and my heart, and he gave me such peace. But there were many steps along the way where I was afraid. I thought I was going to lose my job. That was a very real possibility for a very long time. I didn't know how we were going to do money, how the kids were going to survive without school for those 3 months. There was a lot of fear. Just going to a third world country was a fearful thing. But I was able to lean into my Lord, give myself grace, and allow myself to be afraid. Talk it out with friends and family and share my vulnerabilities, and then move through that fear in order to further the kingdom of the Lord. When I look back at that time, those 3 months as missionaries, it is the absolute best thing I've ever done with my life. Because it's not my life, right? It's the Lord's. And that was something that he put in me, and he worked through me to further his kingdom. The best thing I've ever done. I'd say second to the kids, to adopting children, which was also really hard, to having a baby. Going away and leaning into my fear was the best thing I've ever done. And I think that you have things on your heart that you would do if you weren't afraid. And it could be moving careers. It could be changing jobs or changing the place that you live so you can be closer to friends and family or have a better lifestyle. It could be moving your job so that you have Sundays off so that you can go to church, and so you have more time with the Lord, and so you're healthier. It could be opening up your family and becoming a foster parent. It could be starting a Bible study so you have a chance to talk to other women and other families and other couples about the Lord. But you've got this fear in you that is preventing you from doing it. So I want you to write down, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Make sure it focuses on what you would do to further the kingdom of the Lord, and then just let it come out of you. People ask me, well, I've got the journal and I've got the pens, and then just nothing happens and I don't write. And I think what you're doing is you're stopping yourself. There might be thoughts that come to your head, but you're not writing them down. You think it has to be perfect. It doesn't. It could be words. It could be words that don't make any sense to you. Just let them flow. Just start writing. You just have to do it because they make sense to the Lord. And after you're just throwing out words and throwing out words and throwing out thoughts, at some point it will become clear. At some point, everything will become clear because we are children of the Lord. And when we get to heaven, we'll understand. Here we might not. But when we get to heaven, we will. There's no mistakes. There's no messes with the Lord. So start journaling that. Let me give you a verse. This was the hardest one for me to pick because there's so many verses that I feel are so good for this. But this is Matthew 19:29. And everyone who has given up houses or brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers or children or property for my sake will receive 100 times as much in return and will inherit life. Everyone who has given up houses, children, property, father, mother, for my sake, will receive 100 times as much in return and will inherit eternal life. I'm not saying you walk away from your family or you give away your children, but it's metaphor for what is important to you that you might have to give up to follow hard after Jesus, but you're afraid to do. Look up that verse, Matthew 19:29, in different versions. I really encourage the Passion Translation because that was a really, really good one. This one right here is the CSB, I do believe. Oh, this is the NLT. So look it up in NIV, King James. What is your property? What is your family, your friends, your safety, and your security that you're afraid to give up to follow hard after God? Write it down. Have a great, great day. Thanks for joining me.